How you doing? Welcome back. My name is Rick. This is Winders Ranger. So today we've got another project inside the RV that we're going to do. I've already started. I got one done. I've got, what, 5 more here to do. I have LED lights in the ceiling here in the RV. Probably most of the new RVs, I would say probably all the new RVs have LED lights in them. And this particular rig is, I guess, going on 3 years old now. And I'm having some issues with some of the LED lights starting to fail or flicker. So I found a replacement, and let me show you what we're doing here. So that light there is the new replacement, and this is what we are replacing. You can see there's the existing lights. All the lights in the RV are like that, except the ones that I've replaced. And that's what we're going to be replacing it with. It's a recessed light, LED. It's got little springs. It's very similar to the light that I put over top of the bed in the bedroom. So what we're talking about is a pod light, just like that. It's got an aluminum housing. The wiring setup is very much the same as the lights over top of the bed. It's got the spring system to hold it up into the ceiling. And it's a 12 volt light, I believe. Yes, it's a 12 volt. I don't know if I can get that to focus on there. DC. So it's coming out of the, I guess it would be the converter, I think. Just the 2 wires. It's pretty simple to wire up. It's got a plastic housing on the front there. I wasn't real sure. Some of these LED lights, I got one a while back where, and I don't know where it's at right now, otherwise I'd show you. But when you turn the light on, you could actually see the individual LEDs inside the plastic housing, and I didn't really care for the way that looked. So I've been scanning the internet, trying to find a light that would be suitable, and I came across this one. And I was going to just order one, and I thought, well, what the heck, I'll go ahead and order a box of 6, which is what this is, and we'll test it out and see how it looks. And I wanted something that would have kind of like that incandescent look to it, where you can't see the individual LEDs in there. It's just basically the light itself. It turned out that this is exactly what I was looking for. So what we're doing is we have to remove the old lights, and because that takes a larger recessed hole, you can see they cut a 1-inch hole in the ceiling there, and you can kind of see where the old light was attached to. There's 4 screws that holds that up, and you pull it down, and I just cut the wires. They just used a kind of a butt crimp cap, sort of a wire nut type deal, to attach the lights up there. What they've done is they've drilled all the holes, starting with this light here, that one, and then that one down there. So I don't know exactly what method they used to line all these holes up on the ceiling. The lights themselves look like they're pretty well straight. I don't know so much about the holes. I think the holes, they just kind of got close, and then they tried to keep the lights in a nice straight line down the ceiling here. My concern was, since the holes don't seem like they're in any kind of a straight line to the ceiling, my concern was when I drill the larger hole for the new pod lights, that, you know, end up, you know, if you're coming down the stairs and you're looking down the lights, you'll see like they're not quite lined up with one another. So I went and got a laser level, and it shoots a laser cross. So it has a line that goes up and down, and then one that goes vertically. Had the air conditioner kick on. I had to wait a minute, so I went ahead and turned the laser level on. Now you can see how it shoots this green line, nice straight edge across the ceiling here. So what I want to do, we've got this light here, we've got this one we're working on, and then that one we're going to get to next. That way I can hopefully keep these in a relatively straight line. The hole that I have to drill for the pod light is, I think I'm using an 1.5 inch or a 3.5 inch hole for the pod light to set up in the ceiling. And that gives me just a little bit of wiggle room, probably maybe 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, where I can move it back and forth in the hole just a little bit. The other issue that I have using a hole saw, if you've ever used a hole saw, you've got the arbor, or the bit, and then you've got the actual hole saw itself that goes around the outside. When you've already got a 1-inch hole in the ceiling, the problem is getting it started and keeping it where you want it. Took me a little while to figure it out. There's different ways you can go about it. One of them is getting a hole saw the size of the hole that you got, putting that inside the larger hole saw and not letting that smaller one be the guide to get you started. The problem that I've got with the hole saw is the arbor isn't threaded high enough to grab the other hole saw, so it just kind of sits in there and wobbles around. I tried making a jig or cutting a board with the holes that the bigger hole saw can fit into that I can put up on the ceiling. I haven't tried that yet. My concern was that would move around if the hole saw decided to walk across the ceiling. The other thing that I did, which is what I used for the light here that I've already done, is I just cut out a little square piece of wood that's smaller, or at least the inner diameter of it is smaller than the hole that I'm going to be drilling. But the corners go out far enough to catch that larger hole saw. And then I can screw that little board or piece of wood up into the ceiling there, and the screws are going to be inside the hole, basically, the donut that I'm cutting out of the ceiling. So that way they come out, I don't have to worry about leaving holes in the ceiling out exposed where you're going to be able to see them around the edges of the light. And that gives me something for the arbor to go into and something for the hole saw itself to bite into to get it started. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. So that's the method that we're using here. There you go. Put that piece of wood up there. You can kind of see how the laser line runs right through the middle of it, or pretty close. You can also see the screw holes around the outer edge. And I'm trying to catch all the screw holes, or at least cover them up with the edge of the actual light pod itself. But that'll give me something to get the hole saw started with the arbor in the center. And the outer edges of the hole saw should catch the four corners of this, and that'll trim that off and help me get it started in the ceiling there. Alright, there's the hole. Now I just got to wire in the new light. I'm going to use the three-way Wago wire nuts or lever nuts, and then we'll get the light pod up there. Another little tip: if you run the hole saw in reverse, that also helps you get a good start without having the hole saw grab and try to spin out of the hole on you. So let me get the new light, and we'll get the lever nuts on there. Alright, so that one's installed and done. We'll move on to this one up here in the corner. This one was actually just flickering on this back side here. I think one of the LEDs just went out. It'll probably come back on again. It's not flickering as bad as the first one was that I already replaced the light earlier, but because that one, all four of them were flickering, or not all four, but the whole circle of LEDs were flickering pretty bad. This one just looks like I had maybe one or two. But anyway, we'll get on with it. We'll take this one down and go ahead and get the hole drilled and get the light installed. So the brand of light is Machias? I don't know. I'm sure it's Chinese, I'm sure, no doubt about that. Now the instructions call for the width between the springs 3 inches and 3/8. So the size hole saw that I've been using is 3.5. I couldn't find one in Lowe's or a hardware store that was that exact size. You can get by with 3.5. That's okay. It's gives you a little bit of wiggle room in there, a little bit of play to move the light around. The one thing that I saw here, talking about troubleshooting, where did it go? If the light runs too hot, of course you gotta love some of this wonderful Chinese translation, but it says if the light runs too hot, then it's wired incorrectly to either 24 volts, 36, or 110. They want you to wire it to 12 volts. This particular trailer, the panel there, it looks like it's wired into the 12 volt fuse panel instead of the 110 breaker panel. But it got me to thinking, I wonder how hot those lights actually get. So I measured the temperature with the infrared. We'll measure this one here. Ceiling is, I can't read it on there, 76. And we're going through the plastic housing, but the plastic housing is reading 90 degrees. And if you get right on those LEDs, it reads considerably higher. But I took the light that I just took down, as soon as I unhooked it, and I reached down and I grabbed the infrared. So I measured the LED panel. It's not going to focus on here, but it's a little aluminum heat sink, and it's got the LEDs glued to the other side here. And I measured this front and back as soon as I took it off, and The temperature measured at, I want to say it was 105 degrees, I think, right, just a little under 110 degrees. So the light that I just installed up in the ceiling, I left it hang down for a minute while the air conditioner was running. You wouldn't be able to hear me, so I went ahead and just did it without filming it. But I took the infrared thermometer and I measured the back of the cap here, the side that's recessed up in the ceiling, to see what the temperature is. And I also checked the face and the lip here on both sides, and it didn't get any hotter than about 105 degrees, which is ballpark to what the stock lights that I'm taking down, what they were. So everything's fine. I don't anticipate an issue with that temperature up in the ceiling, but I'll keep an eye on it, along with the build quality, or I guess the reliability of the LEDs. I guess the build quality feels pretty nice, like I said, with the aluminum housing. And it looks like there's a heat sink inside of here as well, underneath of this outer cap. But I can't see what the LEDs look like inside, so you know, I don't know how they're built, but we'll find out. We'll see how it goes. So we've got all of the right side done. That one there. We just finished this one. We're getting ready to do this one here. We've still got that one to do, and that'll be the 6 that I've got in this box. We'll have to get another box to do the rest. Alright, we got all the lights put in. Everything went pretty good, all in all. Ran into a little bit of an issue with this light right here. Turns out there's a air duct that runs through the ceiling there, and when the hole saw finally broke through the ceiling, the plywood that they use for the ceiling, I caught the very bottom corner of that air duct, so I had to patch that up. Wasn't really a big deal, but you know, it's just one of those things. You can't see what's behind there, and not having built this thing myself, I don't know where wires and cables and air ducts and stuff like that run. So not a big deal. All in all, I think it turned out pretty good. They definitely throw pretty good light. They got a lot cleaner look about them than what the stock lights did. So let me turn the lights out, and I've got some auxiliary lighting here I'll turn on so you can kind of see what they look like with the lights out. I think they've got a real clean look about them too. So there you go. I think they turned out pretty good. I think I would have liked them a little bit better if they didn't have like that shiny metal, or the chrome, I guess you'd call it, with the white. But that's okay, not a big deal. I may end up at some point looking into changing some of the cabinet hardware from like that brushed aluminum or that silver look to something that might have a little bit of a white accent to it, to kind of match the lights, to sort of tie everything all in. But I think it turned out okay. So there you go, all the lights are installed. Keep in mind, I just did the 6 here, and I did 1 yesterday. So if I were to add that into today, I would say length of time for the install, probably a good 4 hours, maybe 5 hours at the most. Pretty easy. What really wasn't anything too complicated. There's some, I guess I would say, a learning curve to trying to get that hole saw centered. And that added a little bit of time yesterday. Once I got that down and I got a system going here, it turned out pretty good. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. That'll keep you up to date for future videos. And hit that thumbs up. That really helps out a lot too. And we will see you all in the next video. And until then, take care.